His striking features, his roguish humour, and his sheer talent won him the greatest prize in his profession.
I don't put on an act. Well, no, it's me, transformed into somebody else.
But the passionate nature that made him so captivating on screen would ultimately be his undoing. Hugh Emrys Griffith was born in the quiet, Welsh-speaking hamlet of Marionglas in Anglesey in 1912. His mother, Mary, had already been married twice to sea captains who had both drowned. Hugh's father was her third husband, William Griffith, known locally as Will Bob Llais, or Will of all voices, for his talents as an impressionist. Hugh recalled his childhood in Marionglas in the notes for his unfinished memoir.
I remember a glorious August day when we children were playing around the trees and large shrubs in the garden of Angorfa, where I was born. My mother and father were lounging on the large stone steps. Oh, you couldn't have imagined a more perfect summer's day.
As a child, a very young child, Hugh showed that he was a good mimic, and he was a little mischief.
We both found ourselves in detention practically every day. I can't imagine why, because we never did anything wrong. There must have been a vendetta against us, I think. And when we'd been in detention for about 3 minutes, Hugh would turn round to me and whisper, "Watch out, I'm going to have a fit." And he'd act very agitated and eventually put his head down on the desk and finally fall flat on the floor in a faint. And the poor teacher, faced with this other Oscar-winning performance, would say to me, "William, pick him up and take him home," which I did, and we were both free, of course, and our detention only lasted about 4 minutes.
It was at the village hall, known as the British School, that Hugh first saw professional actors perform. These were touring players from South Wales who put on productions like The Hunchback of Notre Dame. On the night of the show, Hugh was paid a penny to stand backstage and unroll the backcloth. He made his own stage debut in the chapel pantomime, playing the back end of a cow. Hugh was a bright lad, but at school there was one subject he struggled with.
My father got fed up with me failing English all the time, so I couldn't get into the University of Wales, having failed English. So I got into the bank, and I never passed the exam in English.
At the age of 17, Hugh started work at the National Provincial Bank. He spent the next 9 years as a bank clerk, first in North Wales and then in London.
Grounding in banking comes in very useful during, even for an actor. But I'm not expected to know anything. Actors are not expected to know anything about finance at all, and contracts and things like that, you know. But I keep an eye on it myself.
By day, Hugh was a clerk at the bank's head office in Bishopsgate, but in the evenings he acted in amateur productions.
I joined the St Pancras People's Theatre, which was a converted chapel way up towards Camden Town that way, and did one play a week there. And from there I got to know about this scholarship to go to the academy.
At the age of 26, Hugh applied for a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Competition was fierce, but Hugh beat 300 other applicants to win the Leverhulme Scholarship.
My mother and my elder brother, naturally, were rather worried because he was leaving a safe job to join RADA.
And everybody said you'll be earning $1,000 a year in the bank before you earn it on the stage. And I said, well, that remains to be seen. Even the general manager of the bank, he called me in the day I gave in my resignation. He said, well, you know, I can't accept this. You've got to give 6 months' notice. I said, well, that's a pity because I'm starting on Monday at the academy.
During his year at RADA, Hugh won the coveted Bancroft Gold Medal for his role as Napoleon in a play by George Bernard Shaw. The playwright himself praised Hugh's performance. The critic for the Times called him an imaginative and powerful actor. After graduation, Hugh did some early work for television.
I did a television before the war, up in Alexandra Palace. And then the lights were so strong that everybody's clothes were bleached. You know, I mean, if the shirt would be white by the time we'd finished. The lamps were so strong there then.
It was now 1939, and world events were about to make a decisive impact on Hugh's career.
We shall fight on beaches, landing grounds, in fields, in streets, and on the hills.
I struggled with my conscience. Should or should I not fight in some way for England, Wales, or Britain? Why fight for anything?
In the end, Hugh enlisted with the Royal Welsh Fusiliers. But before he was posted abroad, he married Flora Britton, an actress he'd met at RADA. Hugh was keen to start a family, but it wasn't to be.
My wife flatly refused to conceive, whereas the agreed object of the wedding was for me to leave something to remember me by, believing sincerely as I did that I'd never come back alive.
Hugh was posted to India. He reached the rank of captain and at one point found himself in charge of a garrison where the sole prisoner was Pandit Nehru, who would one day become the country's first prime minister. Hugh survived the war, but it proved a serious setback to his career.
As soon as I started professionally, there were 6.5 years of war, and where I was in India and Burma and places like that, and there was no thought of acting. So I missed in the best years of my life at that time. Otherwise, I'd have been at the Old Vic or somewhere.
When Hugh returned home after 4 years of separation from his wife, she left him. Now aged 34 and struggling to restart his career, he bumped into another actress at the Wyndham Theatre.
She was behind some sort of bar with a lot of paper sheets on the counter, busily arranging papers in order that chaps like myself could at least rehearse something together, little scenes out of known plays, and then perform them in front of some well-chosen theatrical agents who might or might not get us back into the business. Seeing her properly alone and coming forward to me from behind that counter, I knew I'd fallen in love with her. Her maiden name was Adelgunde Margaret Beatrice von Dechend. One hell of a mouthful to say at the wedding.
Hugh and Gunda were married in 1947. By now, Hugh was beginning to make a name for himself in the theatre. During a season at Stratford, he played Mephistopheles opposite Richard Harris's Dr. Faustus. He also appeared as King Lear in the Swansea Festival. And in 1949, his film career hit its stride when he appeared in Emlyn Williams's film The Last Days of Dolwyn. Hugh provided great comic value on screen, but on stage he remained a serious actor. In 1951, he returned to Stratford to play Owain Glyndŵr opposite Richard Burton. He and Burton shared a house together. On weekends, it was the scene of riotous parties, attended by Charles Laughton, Humphrey Bogart, and Lauren Bacall. Within a couple of years, Hugh had a country house of his own near Stratford, paid for by his increasingly frequent work in film and TV.
I joined your father as a mathematical genius. That's not boasting. I was once a calculating boy. With these machines, they beat me. I pressed buttons.
Why did you join him?
Looking for some kind of beauty, I suppose. The mathematical kind. The idea of making roads in space for rockets to travel. Four-dimensional roads, curved with relativity, metalled with best quality continuum.
In 1957, Hugh landed a major part in a Broadway production, Look Homeward, Angel. During the run of the play, Richard Burton was also in New York, starring in Time Remembered.
We went to see Richard in the afternoon, and there he was, an 18th century figure with a little badge here, and when we looked, we saw what the badge was. It was a little daffodil, because it was St. David's Day, and he'd put it on. So we went to see him in the evening. And then he comes in, and the eyes blazing, and I looked in, well, absolute surprise. What he had on his lapel was not a little badge of flower, daffodil, but he had a complete leek, roots and all.
During the run of Look Homeward, Angel, Hollywood director William Wyler turned up one night and sat in the front row. After the show, Wyler asked Hugh if he'd audition for the part of an Arab horse trader in his next movie. Billed as the greatest spectacle ever filmed, this biblical epic was so big it threatened to bankrupt MGM. Hugh brought a larger-than-life comic presence to the role of Sheikh Ilderim. During filming, he struck up a close friendship with the star of the picture, Charlton Heston.
Supporting actor is always a tough field. There's always a lot of good performances. And the Sheik was a marvelous role, and Hugh's performance was extraordinary.
Hugh's performance earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He considered attending the award ceremony in Los Angeles, but decided against it, on the basis that he probably wouldn't win. The morning after the awards, he was woken by a phone call from his sister Ellen, telling him he'd won an Oscar. The BBC visited Hugh and Gunda at their home in the Cotswolds to take a look at the award.
Ah, now there's my wife arriving with a pack of Pembrokeshire corgis. Hello, Hugh. Here we are. Here's my wife.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Well, it's an amazing pack you've got here.
They're rather fun, aren't they?
How many have you altogether?
I think about 30. I don't count seriously.
What's this one called?
This one is Melis.
Melis, Mabinogi Melis.
Welsh, they all have Welsh names, do they?
Nearly all Welsh names, yes, from the champion down.
Well, you've got quite a bit of land here, Hugh.
Yes, there's about an acre of orchard altogether,
Yes.
with the stream running through it.
Now, all these fields here, they're yours too?
Yes, they're about 12.5 acres.
Well, doesn't the house look lovely from here?
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
I must congratulate you on your Oscar.
Thank you. I only got it last night. You better come in and see it.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Here it is. A bit heavy. I would have two to make a pair of dumbbells, I think.
Academy First Award to Hugh Griffith in recognition of his performance in Ben-Hur.
And I always remember him consciously smoking, always having fags. And every time he lit a fag, it was with a match. And he'd get a match from the matchbox and then reach out and bring in the Oscar for Ben-Hur, Best Supporting Actor. And then the shape of the Oscar, and around the back of the Oscar, a naked man, he'd strike the match up the... It's a lovely little touch of how to use an Oscar, you know.
Hugh was now a hot property in Hollywood. When MGM decided to make Mutiny on the Bounty, the celebrated British director in charge of the project approached Hugh.
Sir Carol Reed was directing it, and he asked me to play the part of this man who tells us a story that goes right through, from beginning to end.
Filming took place on the idyllic island of Tahiti, but there was soon trouble in paradise. The production degenerated into a power struggle between Carol Reed and the star of the picture, Marlon Brando. Crew and cast split into two camps, with British actors Trevor Howard, Richard Harris and Hugh on one side, and Brando and the other Americans on the other. Eventually, things came to a head.
Carol Reed was fired. Then I said, well, if he goes out, I go. And they said, well, you can't go. It'll cost you so much if you want to go. So I had to go carry on with it and to go back to Tahiti and find a way to hire myself.
And did you?
Yeah.
Hugh dug in his heels and refused to act, claiming he was ill.
April 25th, 1961. Dear Mr. Griffith, we are taking steps today in England to terminate our contract for your services because of your repeated failure to perform. Very truly yours, J.J. Cohn, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer.
Having got himself fired from the Bounty, Hugh began to worry that he'd damaged his professional reputation in the process. His self-confidence as an actor suffered. He only regained it following a colourful performance as Squire Weston in the film version of Henry Fielding's novel, Tom Jones. It earned Hugh his second Oscar nomination. When renowned producer Peter Hall staged Henry IV at Stratford in 1964, there was only one man he wanted to play Falstaff.
How did your Falstaff compare with, say, that of Orson Welles or any of the others?
Far better.
I thought it might be.
Oh, God.
He was British, but Celtic, because he was always Celtic. Very sexy, very roguish, rather devilish, with a wonderful command of language and a wonderful wit. I would certainly rate it among the greatest performances. On his night, he was superb.
Hugh brought the same earthy charm to Galton and Simpson's 1972 comedy about French provincial life, Cloche-Merle.
Christen it properly! Come on, shows you the true Cloche-Merle.
Come along now, Senator.
It is not the sort of thing one can do to order. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's on its way. It's coming. Here it is.
But the television drama for which Hugh would be best remembered was a Welsh one. In 1977, screenwriter Gwenlyn Parry and producer John Hevin had a film they wanted Hugh to appear in. They made a pilgrimage to his house, bearing a fine bottle of Armagnac, and eventually persuaded Hugh to sign up for Grand Slam. Dewi Puss was one of Hugh's co-stars.
First day recording, no, he used to call me a name which I can't repeat, but it was a term of endearment apparently, so he told me, "Come here, you little," this word. I thought, yes, and I thought, oh, I had my copy of my script all scrunched up in my back pocket, and he had this big attaché case with locks on it, and I thought, oh, well, he wants to go over the script now, so, right, come into the corner here, right into this corner, and this is about 7:15, 7:30 in the morning. Oh, right, yes, very professional. He said, right, sit down. Oh, yes, Mr. Griffith. I call him Mr. Griffith. Right, oh, he opened this attaché case, and I thought, here it comes. And he was full of drink, brandies and mixers. And I went, what do you have now then? And he couldn't say no, so I said, oh, whatever you are having, Mr. Griffith. Right, we'll make it a large. So 7:30 in the morning, the first one who was drinking large, nearly ill.
Drink, sir?
Yes, a large brandy and soda, please. Medicine.
Oh, sorry, sir. They're all miniatures.
Well, give me half a dozen minis and a baby sham for my friend here.
He was dangerous. I mean, there was no question of knowing what to do next. He was, mercurial, unconventional. Never would he look as if he'd lost a line or had gone somewhere else. He would have that look of total confidence on his face, no matter what he'd said or where he'd moved to.
Oh, the Eiffel Tower!
Yes, good on it.
Filming on location in Paris on match day, the cast and crew were banking on a Welsh victory to give them their big ending. But the Wales 15 let them down. After filming, the cast drowned their sorrows in a hotel bar with the help of an old friend from back home.
Brains essay they'd imported, especially. And that was going over each other's heads. Nobody could, move virtually. It's all happening.
Everybody was a bit down and drunk and on the floor and pot plants and everything. It was a bit of a mess. And the Welsh team were over there. You can still see them now, about 6 or 7 of them over there. Quite morose.
And Hugh got up, and he wasn't a tall man either. They all noticed that Hugh was the man, you see, the man who'd got the Oscar.
Everybody turned, and there he came. He had his big hat on his head and his collar and his stick and his cane, and he clumped all the way across, and he knew everybody was looking at him. He was a clever boy. Out he came. He came to the middle of the minstrel's gallery, and he thumped this to get everyone's attention, as if everyone wasn't riveted on him anyway. And he pointed his stick towards the team down there, he said, and we'd just lost.
He looked down, he said, "You're all bastards!" And they all were. Great cheers.
Everybody collapsed, including the Welsh team, and lifted the whole night. Oh, we don't care if we lost, we've had a good laugh, like.
Grand Slam was a great success, but Hugh was in danger of becoming a caricature of himself. Having played comical drunks all his life, his own reputation as a hard drinker was by now notorious.
Oh, no, I don't go chasing after girls and all that sort of thing.
You don't?
Or a lecherous old man, or a dirty old man, as I am often cast, But
yes, you played some lecherous parts.
Oh, yes. But I know what it's all about. I ought to at my age, don't I?
And not just the girls, of course. There's the drinking and the high living as well.
Not the boys. No, what did you say? The drinking and the high living? Well, the drinking to a certain extent, yes, and high living, yes, sure. Of course, my wife does the cooking, which is excellent, and that's high living.
I remember when he came on the set first few days, the rumour went round, oh, he's drinking, oh, he's drinking. Get his wife over, what are we going to do? He's drinking. And the producer walked over to him and said, Hugh? Yes. He said, I hear you're drinking. I looked at him, and he said, if you go on drinking, you'll be replaced. And he went, right-ho. And he never drank again.
The films Hugh acted in during his later years were an uninspiring assortment of horror movies and sex comedies. But he still harbored one great unfulfilled ambition: to play King Lear at Stratford.
I think by the time that he was ready, he was actually probably not quite fit enough to do it. the part and the time didn't come together at the right moment. I think drink softened his mental and physical muscles, and that was sad.
Hugh Griffith died on the 14th of May 1980, aged 67. On the day of Hugh's death, his old friend Richard Burton paid tribute to him.
Not only the greatest actor that Wales has produced, but at his finest, one of the greatest in the world, unique unto himself, with a stage presence that was almost animal in its intensity.